back, everybody. It's the doctrine of Christ. How's everybody doing? So, I was thinking about a couple things. I just want to say them quickly. I thought it was interesting. The story of Tamar was put right before the story of Pharaoh's wife. And I think it has something to do with, although they were both a type of behavior, they should be back to back because they are absolutely the reasons why it absolutely needs to be explained. And I really couldn't figure this out about Tamar and why. It's just a weird story. It takes some trying to look into it. And she had these twins, and then this one twin just kind of overtook the other twin coming out and came out first really boldly. And okay, well, that's one thing. So this is the second set of twins that we've been introduced to, right? So the first is Jacob and Esau. And now we have these twins from Tamar. Pharaohs is the one that came out, and the other one is Zerah. And I read here that maybe this Pharaohs will be through the line of David, but we'll see what happens. And the other thing I wanted to kind of correct was, not correct, but just the other thing that's really interesting. Okay, so in Genesis 21, and I did mention this at some point, so when Abraham told everybody, this is my sister, so what is funny about this is these are very parallel stories, these two stories, in chapter 20 and 26. So in 20, Abraham was in Gerar, and in 26, Isaac was in Gerar, and they did the same exact thing. And I remember when I was trying to figure out was who was the king. Was it a Pharaoh? Wait a second, what's going on? But you know what? I think it's the same king, King Abimelech. And he was a good king, because we can tell that because God was communicating with him through dreams. And that's how he found out that in chapter 20, Abraham was not the sister. But actually, you even see, though, he did not lie, because he says in verse 12, and yet indeed she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. And then in 26, Isaac was also in Gerar, talking about she is my sister. It's the same exact pattern. And then in chapter 8, and it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out a window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife. So those stories completely match. So I just wanted to make sure I have that clear, because we may run into this some more. And the thing about the twins. So nobody, it doesn't say Adam or Cain and Abel were twins, right? I think I heard somebody talking about how they may have been fraternal twins, but it doesn't mention that here. But I just want to make sure we know who the twins are. So there's two sets for sure. Jacob and Esau, and now this Perez and what's his name? Zerah. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into chapter 40. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them. And they continued a season in ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And the Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner, when thou wast his butler. But think on me, when it shall be well with thee, and shew kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should have put me into the dungeon. And that's 100% true. He didn't do anything. It's Pharaoh's hussy wife. You know, what did she think she's going to get from that? She's just going to get him killed? He's going to make her pregnant? You think Pharaoh's going to be okay with that? This is the opposite story of what Tamar did. Tamar, we'll see. This is very exciting, because if that happened and that caused David to be born, that's very serious. So this woman, the Pharaoh's wife, did the opposite. She did it just for herself. She did it because the opposite of what Tamar did. The opposite. Okay. So he did nothing that they should put him in there, like his brothers all threw him in the pit. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And it came to pass the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. So he's out there, he got free. The dreams came, they were interpreted perfectly, and he doesn't put in one good word to this Pharaoh on his birthday about Joseph. Chapter 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept, and he dreamed the second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, and I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of the dream. And there was with us a young man, an Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams, to each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored into mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. So that kind of proves that shaving shaving hair, but I'm glad it's not a sin to do that, or what would have happened there? Okay. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Yay! So when we get into Daniel, he says the same. He gives the same type of answer. Okay, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt, for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine, And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them. But they were still ill-favored, as in the beginning. So I awoke. So in this dream, the skinny ones ate the fat ones, but they didn't gain any weight. And they still looked bad. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath shewed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he sheweth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. So even though they have a lot, nobody's even going to know they have anything because the situation's so bad, nobody knows anything. And for that the dream was doubled into Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. And that therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in their cities. And the food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God hath shewed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled.